For months, NNAMDI MADUBUIKE's name has been surrounded by questions and concern among Ravens fans. The lack of updates about his recovery left many people wondering when one of the team's biggest defensive stars would finally return to the field. But now, a new update has completely changed the situation. And the most interesting part is that this news could mean much more than just a player coming back. It could become a major piece in Baltimore's attempt to bounce back in 2026. When I saw the details of this update, it became clear why Ravens fans have a reason to feel excited again about MADUBUIKE and the future of this defense. I'll be honest. For most of the past year, NNAMDI MADUBUIKE's situation felt like one of the biggest concerns across the entire NFL. It wasn't only the injury itself that caught people's attention. The biggest issue was a lack of information about his condition. As the months went by, Ravens fans still had no idea when or even if one of the foundations of this defense would be able to return to the field. Now, the entire situation has changed. According to reporter Jeff Zrebiec, MADUBUIKE has been cleared by independent doctors specializing in spine and cervical issues to resume football activities. The most encouraging part came directly from Zrebiec's update. He has been cleared to return to the field and could practice as early as next week. For everyone who followed the uncertainty surrounding the situation, this update carries a lot of weight. And in my view, there is a very simple reason why this news has created so much excitement. When healthy, MADUBUIKE is not just another player on the Ravens roster. He is one of those defenders who can completely change a game. His presence in the middle of the defensive line helps pressure quarterbacks, close running lanes, and make life much harder for opposing offenses. That is why many people believe his absence was one of the reasons behind Baltimore's defensive struggles during the 2025 season. But before anyone thinks he is ready to step on the field tomorrow, there is one important detail to understand. Even though doctors have cleared his return, the Ravens are still taking a careful approach before putting him back into full activities. And I have to admit, considering the seriousness of what he went through, this feels like the smartest decision possible. The good news is here, but the team still believes there is one more important step before seeing him fully back in his normal routine. When the news about MADUBUIKE's medical clearance came out, many people expected him to immediately return to normal practices. After all, after so many months of uncertainty, it would have been easy to believe the next step was seeing him back in uniform with his teammates. But the Ravens decided to take a different approach. Even with approval from specialists, the team chose to slow things down and monitor every stage of the process carefully. That is why MADUBUIKE was placed on the PUP list, a designation used for players who are not yet ready to fully participate in team activities. The important detail is that this decision did not happen because he suffered a setback or because a new problem appeared. Instead, the information available suggests this move is about rebuilding his conditioning, getting him reacclimated, and allowing the team to evaluate him before complete return to practice. Personally, I see this approach as a positive sign. We are talking about a player who dealt with a serious situation involving his neck and spine. In cases like this, rushing the process to gain a few extra days is rarely worth the risk. The Ravens seem to understand that the priority is not getting him back as quickly as possible, but making sure he can stay healthy once he returns and competes at a high level again. And there is another factor that makes this cautious approach easier to understand. For a long time, this situation was handled with a lot of privacy inside the organization. Very few people had clear information about how serious the issue was, and that created room for plenty of speculation. Now that more details are starting to come out, it is easy to understand why the franchise chose to handle every step with so much patience from the beginning. One of the reasons NNAMDI MADUBUIKE's situation received so much attention was not only the injury itself. What really increased the concern among Ravens fans was a lack of answers throughout the entire process. While other situations usually receive frequent updates, this one remained surrounded by an unusual level of uncertainty. And when information is missing, people naturally start trying to fill in the blanks. During most of that time, the Ravens avoided sharing deeper details about the issue MADUBUIKE was dealing with. Former head coach John Harbaugh also chose not to provide specific explanations, mainly because of how serious and sensitive the situation was. Many people understood that approach, but also opened the door for rumors and speculation among fans and NFL analysts. In my opinion, This was one of the most difficult moments of the entire situation. When a player remains away from the field for such a long time and nobody knows the real picture, every week without an update creates even more concern. There were plenty of theories about how serious the injury was and how long it would take for him to return. Some of those predictions were extremely pessimistic. Looking back now, many things start to make more sense. The Ravens' careful approach, the way they handled their comments, and a lack of optimistic timelines all appear to be connected to how serious the situation really was. The difference today is that there is something that did not exist months ago, a real path to a return, and that completely changes how this entire story is viewed. When an elite player leaves the field, the impact usually affects much more than one position. In NNAMDI MADUBUIKE's case, his absence was felt across the entire Ravens defense. The team struggled to generate consistent pressure on opposing quarterbacks, had problems maintaining the same level of intensity in the trenches, and at times clearly missed having a dominant presence in the middle of the defensive line. The team's performance throughout the 2025 season reflected that reality. Baltimore entered the year with high expectations, but the defense never reached the level many people expected. Of course, it would be unfair to blame every problem on the absence of one player. Still, there is no denying the importance MADUBUIKE had within this defensive system. I believe there is a huge difference between replacing a position and replacing a special player. Finding someone to take a spot on the roster is one thing. Finding someone capable of creating the same impact is something completely different. Players like MADUBUIKE force opponents to adjust their entire game plan because they know a defender can completely disrupt an offense. That is why this recovery news means much more than a simple individual comeback. For the Ravens, it represents the possibility of getting back a player who can elevate everyone around him. And when a defense gets a talent like MADUBUIKE back on the field, expectations naturally begin to rise again.
If you're enjoying this breakdown, smash that like button to help the purple flock grow.
Every NFL season creates comeback stories, but some stand out more than others. NNAMDI MADUBUIKE's recent journey has everything needed to become one of those stories. A few months ago, the conversation was focused on the seriousness of his injury and the uncertainty surrounding his future. Now, the discussion has shifted toward the possibility of seeing him back on the field, preparing to compete at a high level again. This change did not happen by accident. It came from a long recovery process, strict medical evaluations, and a lot of patience from both the player and the organization. Fans do not always see everything that happens away from the field, but moments like this require discipline, dedication, and the mental strength to deal with challenges every single day. I'll admit something. Stories like this are the ones that stand out to me the most in sports. It is easy to admire an athlete when they are winning games and dominating opponents. What truly shows their strength is how they respond when everything starts going the wrong direction. And from everything we have seen so far, MADUBUIKE went through one of the toughest moments of his career without giving up on his goal of returning. Now, for the first time in a long time, the focus is no longer only on the injury. It is about the comeback. There is still work to do. There are still steps to complete, and nobody knows exactly when he'll be back at his absolute best. But one thing seems clear. The Ravens have a real opportunity to turn the page after a disappointing season, and MADUBUIKE could become one of the most important pieces in that turnaround. NNAMDI MADUBUIKE's recovery has become one of the biggest stories surrounding the Ravens right now. After months of questions and uncertainty, the medical clearance has brought a new perspective for both the player and the team. In my view, the biggest part of the situation is that Baltimore is not only getting back a great defender, but also bringing back a player who can completely change the identity of this defense. The road back still requires patience, but the signs are extremely positive. MADUBUIKE went through a difficult moment, faced a lot of uncertainty, and now he is getting closer to doing what made him one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. I believe this story shows the importance of staying patient during difficult moments and how a comeback like this can completely change the energy around a franchise. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe NNAMDI MADUBUIKE will be one of the biggest pieces in the Ravens' comeback season in 2026? Leave your comment because I want to know what Ravens fans think. And as always, we will keep following every update throughout this season.
And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, Don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out, and I'll see you in the next video.